We can now proceed and create a door right here between those pillars, and I feel like I can move this one a little bit to the side, so I will just select the Boolean object and press G, then X, and move it tiny bit to the side here, and then fix position of this here like that. And now we have a space to create some door there. Let's just select the room object and go into the edit mode. I will press 3 for face select and select this wall. Let's press Shift D, enter to duplicate, and P, enter to separate, and we have now created a new object here. And now we can select the new object, go into the edit mode, look from the front with 1 on a numpad, and now we can toggle the X-ray, go to the edge select by pressing 2 and just select some of these edges, press G twice and slide them inside, the other one as well, and the top one. So G twice and slide it inside, and we can go a little bit inside this ceiling slope. It will add some visual interest if the door is kind of inset there. So I feel like this will work fine for door shape. And now what I want to do is to tab out, right click, and set origin to center of mass. So we have the origin here in the middle. And now go back to the edit mode, vertex select with 1, and select these 2 vertices at the top, and we'll bevel them to create the slope there. So Ctrl B and then V, or you can press Ctrl Shift B as a shortcut, but it's kind of a handful, so I better like to use Ctrl B than V. And now let's create those door slopes like this. And now we can go back to the face select by pressing 3, select this inside face and inset. So press I and inset like that. And we'll need to get rid of the bottom face here, so select that one, press X and delete faces. And now we'll need to move this down, so we can prepare a vertex select here, go to the snapping options and switch to the vertex. And that's everything we need to do right here. And now we can go to the edge select, select this edge down here, press G, Z, and by holding Ctrl we are enabling that vertex select, so the moment it snaps, just confirm with the left click. And now we can delete this inside face, so go to the face select by pressing 3, select the face and press X and delete. So this will serve as a door frame. Now we can add a little bit more visual interest to the door by creating a little bit of an inlay here. So let's press Ctrl R to add a loop there, confirm with the left click, and we can press E if we want to even this out with one of the edges. If you want to flip that, remember you can press always F. And now I will release this somewhere here and create another one down there like this. And now I will select both of those edges by holding Shift and press Ctrl B and bevel it out like that. And now we can select this one edge here, press G then X and move it inside like that. So we are creating some kind of space for lock-in mechanism or elevator control mechanism or whatever you want to have there. And now we can select all by pressing A, rotate this a little bit and extrude the door. And again, I'm eyeballing this, so something like this should work just fine. And now we'll add some more bevels. So with edge select active, we can alt click here to select this loop and bevel it out like this. And then we can select inside loop, so alt click here. And let's do another bevel, but not that large like this one. I would say like half of that. So it looks like this. We'll need to cut into those wall panels and some of that stuff around the door. We want to create a cage that we'll use as a Boolean operator later. Go to the face select, alt click right here to select this outside loop. And now we'll duplicate this, so Shift D and enter, and again P to separate. So as you can see, I'm reusing the existing geometry quite a lot to create the new stuff. And now I want to exit the edit mode of the door, select this new object, and let's look from the front. Go into the edit mode, we can enable vertex select, so we better see the vertices. Now let's get closer a little bit, and we can select all and press Alt S to enable that normal scaling. and scale it out like this. So we are creating a little bit of a space around the door. And now we can drag a selection around these vertices, we don't need them, and press Ctrl X to dissolve them. And we can connect these bottom two, so press F, and now select all. And now let's rotate this a little bit, and we can cover this up by alt-clicking here, pressing F, creating a face, then here, and the same thing, press F to cover that up. And now, just to be safe, we can select all and press Shift-N, to recalculate normals. And if we look from the side, we want to go inside these panels and a little bit outside, so there's a cage around the door for later use as well. So we can press S and Y and scale this out like this, so we have a nice cage that we can use. Maybe you can go even beyond the wall if you later want to maybe create a hallway there or something. So this will work just fine. And now we can tab out, shift click these panels, toggle the X-ray, shift click these panels, and Control minus to create the Boolean operation with the door cage object. And now let's select these panels and fix the stack again and move this above the bevel. And right here you can see how we are nicely terminating these panels here. Here it's even accounting for that slope. So these are those little details that can really make the difference when you make a scene like this, where you have a lot of those geometrical lines next to each other and stuff like that. So this is the cutout for the door, and we can now focus on finishing the door itself. So let's select the door. Let's tab into the edit mode, enable face select by pressing 3, alt click right here to select that inner loop, and we'll again reuse the geometry, so Shift D, enter, and P, enter to separate this into a separate object. And let's now tab out, select this new object, tab in. And I will do the same thing here, so let's look from the front, toggle the X-ray. I will select all and press Alt S to scale along normals a little bit. And by holding Shift, we can adjust this with a little bit of a precision, and just a little bit of a gap right there, so it's not directly connected to the door frame. And now again we can go to the vertex element by pressing 1, drag a selection around those 4 vertices down there, press F, and now we can rotate this, select the back loop, fill it up, and the front loop as well. So alt click there, F to fill, press A to select all, and Shift N to recalculate normals. You can sometimes see how the color of the faces changes. That's when you know that these normals weren't acting accordingly. So good thing we are preventively recalculating these normals when we are creating object from a reused geometry or just from a planar objects. And now we can select this front face. So go to the face select by pressing 3, select this front face. And you can see those little dots there. So if you have some particular face in mind, the closer you click to the dot, the better you are able to select the particular face. And now I want to move this a little bit inside. So press G then Y and move it inside, maybe a halfway through the door there. So something like this. And we can toggle the X-ray again. One more step here with the door. I want to press I to inset, to create a little bit of a supporting frame for the door, and E to extrude this inside a little bit, so something like that. Now we'll add the bevels to those objects, so tab out, and we can start right here with the door. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can see what we are doing. Let's enable the wireframe overlay. Remember, you can do it with that quick menu. And now let's go to the modifiers and add the bevel modifier. And again, we'll go to the geometry, disable clamp overlap, and start reducing the offset so we have something we want there. And I think 0.015 is quite all right. So we can increase the number of segments so we have those nice supporting loops there, and limit method to angle so we are not creating bevels where we don't need that, and select the miter to arc here, and you will see how this changes there. And again, if you want to see the difference this is the geometry that's created, and if you switch to the arc, this is much better and much more smooth. And now let's go to the shading and switch on harden normals. And here you will get a warning that you need to enable that auto smooth. That's something I was talking about before. So let's go to the object data, and under the normals, you can enable auto smooth and go all the way to 180 degrees. So we now have nice beveled object here. And here with the door frame, we can just transfer that modifier. So we are not doing all of this setup again. So select the door frame, shift click the door, press Ctrl L and modifiers. So now we transfer the bevel modifier, but you can see we need to enable smooth shading as well and enable that auto smooth. That won't happen when we are transferring those modifiers. And I suspect we have smooth shading enabled here as well, but the auto smooth function took care of that. And now I want to further add some visual interest to the door by making it look so they are basically opening in the middle, and we can move the cursor right here to the right part of the door. So shift right click, and I will add the cube there. So shift A and add a cube. Now we can make this a little bit smaller so it covers the door there on the right. Be careful about this. And now let's look from the front and make it larger on the Z. So S, Z, and scale it up, and we can press GZ additionally and move it down. And if you want to better see what's going on there, toggle the X-ray. And now I want to make 2 cuts in the middle here. So Ctrl R and increase the number of cuts with the mouse wheel, confirm with the left mouse click and release with the right mouse click. And now I want to go to the vertex select by pressing 1, select these 2 vertices, press G, then X, and move this here. So I want to create some kind of slope there, so it's more interesting. But again, when you look at it like this, we have this kind of angle here and this angle here. It wouldn't play nicely together. So what we can do is just select these vertices, press G, then Z, and move them up until we have something more similar in place like that. So we are creating some interesting geometry with those angles here, and this will look much more pleasant to the eye than if we just left the random angles there. And now what we can do is toggle the X-ray back. Let's just check if this covers the door. Yeah, I think so. And now we can just tab out, shift select the door, and we'll press Ctrl/ to create that double operation where we are creating link duplicate from some object and then adding 2 different booleans. So we are basically splitting this object in half using this one modifier. And now all we need to do is to go to the modifiers and fix the stack by moving this above the bevel. Let's go closer so we can see what's going on there, and move this above. So here we are getting this nice cut in the middle, this nice separation, and this is very practical to use a boolean modifier to separate object like this, because these 2 objects are still one same linked duplicate. So if I go into the edit mode of some of these, and you would, for example, decide that you don't want this so deep, you can do that for both of those. So very useful to use booleans in this matter. And now we'll continue by adding more details to the door. First, I want to split this frame a little bit so it doesn't look like it's from one piece of metal. So first of all, let's just select this object, Shift S and cursor to select it, so we have cursor in the middle. And now let's just press Shift A and add the plane here, and we can go into the edit mode and scale this up like this. So we are cutting all the way through this door. And now tab out and let's move this down. So I want to move this all the way down here, so G, Z, and move it there. And now let's go into the edit mode, and we'll do a very slight extrusion here. So press E, and by holding Shift, just do a very little extrusion there, something like this. And now we can tab out, go to the modifier stack and add an array modifier. And now we'll switch off the relative offset, and I want to enable constant offset. And let's just try to increase the Z like this, maybe up until here. And let's add another one right there. This is too high up, so I will probably just reduce this somewhere here. Okay, this works for me. And now we can just shift click the frame and press Ctrl- to create the Boolean cut there and move this Boolean above the bevel modifier. So we have some nice cut there, and the reason why I use the constant offset is that now if you go into the edit mode of that plane, since we use the array modifier, we can just modify this one plane to interactively modify these cuts, and since there is constant offset, we don't need to worry about its height. So we can go back to this and modify it however we want. And now, just for the fun here, let's add a little detail to this door frame. So shift right click here to add a cursor approximately in the middle of this segment here, and we'll press Shift A and add the cube there. Let's scale this down, so tab in, scale this down to something like this, and SZ to scale it on a Z-axis. Let's look from the front, and I will center this a little bit better, so tab out, press G, Z, and move it down. And we can now go back to the edit mode, edge select by pressing 2, select this edge, and let's press Ctrl B to bevel, and this will nicely copy that angle we have on the door. So tab out, and now just shift click the door, and let's press Ctrl+ to add this to the geometry and fix the stack by moving this above the bevel. And now we have this nice object welded in, and again, beautiful way how to add a complex geometry to something while keeping the original mesh intact. So I really like this approach. And now let's finish the door by adding some detail here in the top. First of all, I want to cut into the ceiling a little bit, so let's select the door frame we created earlier and shift left click here, press Ctrl-, so we have the cut there as well. But remember, anytime you do a cut like this and you have a bevel modifier in place, you need to fix this. So let's drag this over, nice cut there, and you can see how this nicely plays together. So I want to select the door frame right now, tab into the edit mode, select this edge right here and hold Shift S and add cursor to select it. That's just because I want to create an object in the middle there. Now tab out, let's press Shift A and add the cube here, and let's tab into the edit mode and press S to scale this down to something like this. That will work just fine. And now press S and X to scale this on the X-axis a little bit, and the Y-axis as well, so S and Y, and we'll push this a little bit inside, so G then Y, and move it here. So we have something like this, and it goes a little bit beyond the door. And now we can go to the edge select by pressing 2, select this edge, Ctrl B and bevel this down to create a nice slope there, like that. And then I want to select these edges here, so let me toggle the X-ray so you better see. So this one here and on the other side as well, and I will bevel those as well, so Ctrl B, but I want to add more segments to this, so like 5 or 6 segments to create a nice rounded bevel. Now tab out, let's toggle the X-ray, and I will Ctrl+ this to the door, so we will add this as a Boolean object. So shift click the door frame and Ctrl+ and fix the stack. So again, we are welding a new geometry, but here you can see the moment you are using Boolean with a rounded geometry, that flat shading kicks in. So we'll need to select this Boolean object, right click and shade smooth, and we have created some shading issue there. So let's turn on the wireframe overlay and let's see what's happening there. We are getting too close with this edge right there, so maybe we can just make this a little bit smaller and move it down like this, and it's all fixed. So there you can see it's not that precise a method, but if you don't really care about the pixel perfect precision, you can always find the place where that Boolean operator works. And now the best thing, you can use the same Boolean object to cut out into another object as well. So with this one selected, selected, I will just shift click the ceiling structure here, press Ctrl- for a change, and fix the stack there as well. So right here you can see we added an object that's added to the door frame but subtracted from a ceiling here. So again, amazing way how you can use Boolean objects to create all kinds of crazy geometry and do it interactively and on the fly while prototyping your scene. And now I want to add a little bit more interest to this object here. I want to create some empty space. So with cursor still in place, we will press Shift A, add a cube here, and let's make this smaller like this. So it goes outside here a little bit, and let's bring it up. So let's look from the front, bring it up like this. And we can now toggle the X-ray, go to the vertex select these top vertices, and let's scale this on the X-axis until we have a nice angle here. And we can press G twice and slide them down. We don't need such a large object there. And let's check this from the side. I think it works fine. So let's toggle the X-ray, tab out, and we'll select and we'll shift click the door frame again and press Ctrl- for a change and fix the stack. So here you can see how we are using two Boolean objects to first add to some structure and then to subtract. And every time the Boolean operation takes all of these Boolean predecessors into account, so the order in the stack matters, and always treats the last object as its separate mesh. So this way you can go even deeper with this cut, and you can see how you are cutting into the whole object there and accounting for all the booleans that are in place. So very useful thing. And now I will leave it like this. And the one last thing I want to do is to tidy up the scene a little bit better. So we'll probably need to parent all of this to the door frame, since it's easier to select. Basically, it's a larger object in place here. So let's select all of these Boolean objects, this one as well, and the door frame. Don't forget that one. If you select accidentally something outside, you can always just hold Control and drag selection there to subtract it from selection. And now we will select these door objects and door frame as last. Press Ctrl P and parent this as an object. And now if we select the door frame, we can move this whole. And the best thing again is that if you decide to maybe modify your layout a little bit, you can always grab a pillar a little bit to the side, select the door frame, and just move all of it. And now I can see we forgot this one, so sorry for that. I will just parent this real quick. So Ctrl P object, and now you can see we are able to move this in place. So let me put this back. So pretty neat, right? Let's select the door frame again, and let's call this door in the outliner. So we have some order here. Let's zoom out a little bit, and we can move on to the next part.